Just hours before the highly anticipated 2004 Karmapalooza Music Festival, authorities make a grim discovery: 7 college students found dead. Each body is carefully arranged to resemble one of the 7 deadly sins from biblical lore. The shocking crime earns the culprit the nickname the Seven Deadly Sins Killer, or SDSK. Now, 2 decades later, the festival makes its return, reviving old fears that the infamous murderer might strike again. Despite the lingering dread, tickets sell out. Detective Russell Daniels, in a televised interview, expresses hope that the killer has vanished but vows to bring him to justice if he resurfaces. 2 years before the tragic killings, a girl named Colette was found dead in a secluded cabin where she and her friends often gathered. The official story? She ended her own life. Fast forward to the present, Colette's former friends prepare for another Karmapalooza. Sarah, the newest member of the group, feels uneasy and prays she makes it through the weekend unscathed. Social media hopeful Liv arrives at her house, and together they set off in a van to pick up the rest of the crew. Among them is Will, the laid-back type, and Aaron, who can't join but provides the group with drinks. At Aaron's workplace, Guy, known for his fondness for recreational substances, urges him to bring along some extra supplies. Initially hesitant, Aaron changes his mind when Sarah personally invites him to meet up with them later. As they gather, internet sensation Mona joins the group in a parking lot. Their plans take an unexpected turn when LB frantically rushes toward them, pursued by an enraged husband whose wife he spent the night with. Without hesitation, Sarah steps on the gas, narrowly escaping the situation. During the ride, Mona checks in with her agent, but Liv jumps in, begging for a shot at online fame. The agent dismisses her, saying she needs to rack up 1,000 likes over the weekend to even be considered. Their journey is suddenly interrupted when one of the van's rear tires blows out, causing Sarah to fight for control before bringing the vehicle to a halt. Everyone scrambles to check for injuries, but Liv is only concerned with her shattered phone. Officer Lois Shaw soon arrives at the scene and advises them to find accommodations for the night, as their special tire won't be available until the following day. While Guy struggles to find an open vacancy, Sarah stumbles upon a nearby rental and books it immediately. The officer offers them a lift, reminding them to stay cautious before leaving them at their temporary home. Excited by their unexpected stay, the group explores the property. Will flips through channels on the TV, only to find it permanently stuck on a broadcast of the 7 deadly sins. Meanwhile, Liv discovers a set of shot glasses in the dining room, each labeled with one of the deadly sins. She assumes they're a welcome gift from the house's management, but Sarah suspects it's a subtle warning. The friends decide to have fun with the themed glasses, assigning sins to each other based on personality traits. Mona takes pride for her self-absorption, Liv gets greed for her hunger for attention, Will is dubbed sloth for his easygoing nature, and LB gets lust for his endless romantic pursuits. Guy, called gluttony, jokingly takes Aaron's glass, labeling him envy for always wanting to be part of the action. Finally, Sarah is given wrath, an unusual choice as Liv doubts she has an angry bone in her body. Sarah simply replies, "You don't know me that well." As they raise their glasses in a toast to their friendship and the upcoming festival, none of them notice the hidden camera discreetly watching from above the television. Later, Mona invites Sarah to an inflatable pool and asks about her past. Sarah admits she was a loner in high school, making her grateful to have found such an accepting group. As she heads back inside, unseen eyes track her every movement through the house's network of secret surveillance cameras. The day turns into evening, and with alcohol flowing freely, Guy sneaks away, eager to catch his secret performance at the festival. However, his plans take a nightmarish turn when a masked stranger tases him in a dark alley. He wakes up strapped to a chair, the word gluttony ominously painted behind him. As eerie footage of Colette and their old friend group plays in the background, the killer prepares a deadly concoction. A gas mask is forced onto Guy's face, and within moments he is subjected to a brutal fate, his stomach pumped full of chemicals until it violently ruptures. Unaware of the horror unfolding, their remaining friends start a game of spin the bottle. The bottle initially pairs LB with Sarah, but Mona, always wanting the spotlight, ignores the rules and pulls LB away from herself. As the two get intimate upstairs, the SDSK lurks nearby, silently selecting his next weapon. Midway through filming their passionate encounter, Mona notices a shadowy figure moving in the background. Terrified, she immediately shows the footage to the others, proving an intruder is inside the house. Panic sets in as they begin receiving text messages from Colette. The messages accuse them of being responsible for her death, demanding vengeance. Sarah urges the group to explain what really happened, and reluctantly, they admit that Colette was once a close friend. She had fallen hard for Mona, but when Mona rejected her, Colette spiraled. The official story claims she took her own life, but there was a fire that destroyed the cabin that night. Not everyone in the group believes the story is being told in full. Later, in private, Liv confides in Sarah, revealing a darker truth. Mona had been manipulating Colette, leading her on through texts, only to abandon her when feelings became real. Liv warns Sarah not to trust Mona, who has a habit of using people's secrets against them. Moments later, Liv leaves to meet a supposed online date, only to realize too late that she's walked into a trap. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself kneeling in a bathtub, her hands bound. Above her hangs a bucket labeled Greed. The killer broadcasts a sickening game to the internet. If she can reach 1,000 likes in 2 minutes, she will be spared. If not, she will suffer the consequences. Tears stream down her face as she pleads for mercy, insisting she tried to stop her friends from hurting Colette. The timer ticks down. At the last second, she falls short by 1 dislike. Boiling water pours over her body, broadcasting her gruesome fate live on social media. Unbelievably, viewers believe it's staged and continue to comment and react as if it were entertainment. Meanwhile, the rest of the group prepares to leave for the festival. As tensions rise, Sarah discovers that Mona has been spreading lies about her, causing an argument. Frustrated, she storms off and LB follows, believing he can finally have a moment alone with her. But when he enters his room expecting to find Sarah, he instead finds an inflatable doll. Realizing he's been tricked, he turns to leave, only to be blinded by a chemical spray. The killer swiftly overpowers him, and LB's body is soon left hacked and lifeless. Hearing noises, Mona and will assume LB is just having fun, oblivious to the carnage unfolding. But when Aaron arrives and goes to check, he lets out a blood-curdling scream, alerting the entire house. The group rushes to the scene, discovering LB's mutilated body. Just then, distant cries echo through the hallway, leading them to a previously locked door. Inside, they find a space eerily resembling their old cabin. A television plays disturbing clips from their past, some showing them standing before the burning wreckage. Horrified, they finally understand someone had been watching them all along. And now that someone is here. LB uploaded the video and it quickly went viral. The girl found herself in even deeper trouble when her strict religious parents discovered her indiscretions. The couple had planned to meet her at the cabin to discuss her actions, but by the time they arrived, she was already dead. When they saw their names etched into the floor beside her lifeless body, they set fire to the shack, erasing any evidence that could implicate them. As the group processes the disturbing truth, they stumble upon an eerie altar covered in their photos. Each of them has been assigned one of the 7 deadly sins, leading Sarah to believe they are being punished for their moral failings. Their fears intensify when they discover a horrifying room with separate booths dedicated to each sin. Inside are the gruesome remains of their friends who had already fallen victim to the SDSK. Panic sets in and Will tries to escape, but the killer intercepts him, causing him to stumble. Before he can recover, an axe swings down, embedding deep into his back, ending his life instantly. The survivors freeze in terror when they recognize Colette's face displayed on the serial killer's LED mask. But when the figure blocks the only exit, they have no choice but to flee in the opposite direction. In the chaos, they become separated, each finding a place to hide. Meanwhile, the sloth victim weakly crawls across the floor, begging for help. The masked murderer shows no mercy, dragging him into his designated booth and swiftly beheading him. Aaron watches in horror from behind a bathtub, staying as still as possible. However, his cover is blown when Liv regains consciousness and starts screaming. The 7 deadly sins killer advances toward them, intent on eliminating greed. Aaron barely dodges the attack, narrowly escaping death. Realizing there is no way out, he signals the women to make a run for it. As they desperately struggle with the door, Aaron pleads for his life, but the masked predator remains relentless. The chase continues with the SDSK right on their heels. The survivors move quickly and silently through the darkness. Crawling on all fours, Mona spots the glowing LED mask hanging ahead and momentarily hesitates. Seizing the opportunity, the killer lunges from the shadows, but Mona reacts instantly, grabbing a nearby box and smashing it against the attacker. Her quick reflexes buy them a few precious seconds, allowing them to rush upstairs. Unfortunately, they are met with another locked door, and despite their frantic efforts, they cannot get it open in time. Before they can escape, the 7 deadly sins killer catches up to them. The social media influencer, realizing their dire situation, turns to Aaron with a soft apology before planting a kiss on his lips. Then, without hesitation, she shoves him into the attacker, using his body as a shield and pushing them both down the staircase. The brutal fall does little to slow the killer, who quickly regains composure and claims Envy as the next victim. Mona retaliates, stabbing him in a desperate attempt to stop him, but he simply pulls the blade from his body and hurls her onto the couch. He then moves in to finish her off. Refusing to die, Mona fights back, managing to disarm him. As he charges at her again, she flips him over and delivers a series of devastating blows. Just as she is about to crush him with a television, the masked figure suddenly reveals her true identity, Lois. Mona, stunned, demands answers. Lois simply states that they all got what they deserved. Before Mona can react, Lois strikes her hard, throwing her off balance. The struggle escalates as they battle for control of the single weapon. Eventually, Lois gains the upper hand and orders Sarah to grab another knife. But instead of attacking their common enemy, Sarah drives the blade into Mona's body. As Mona desperately tries to stem the bleeding, Sarah's cold demeanor shifts, and she finally unveils her sinister plan. She confesses that after Colette's death, she spiraled into despair and attempted to end her life until Lois saved her. She goes on to reveal that she and Lois bonded over their shared hatred for shallow, self-absorbed people like their so-called friends. Together, they decided to recreate the 7 deadly sins killer's legend, turning it into their own brand of twisted justice. Seeing this, Mona's eyes burn with fury as the extent of their betrayal sinks in. With a chilling smirk, Sarah admits she is wrath and delivers a final push, forcing Mona to loosen her grip. As the wounded woman succumbs to her injuries, Sarah calmly dials the police and plays the role of a terrified survivor. Minutes later, authorities arrive to investigate the grisly scene. Detective Russell Daniels questions Sarah, but before he can press further, Officer Shaw intervenes, insisting she needs a break. Once alone, Lois discreetly reassures Sarah that everything is proceeding as planned. However, there is one loose end that has been weighing on Lois' mind: the footage of the group setting the cabin ablaze. Everyone in their circle was present that night, but who actually recorded it? Sarah casually confesses that she hacked LB's account and lured the influencer to the shack. What she hadn't anticipated was Colette showing up to stop her. In a tragic mistake, Sarah had fired, believing she was shooting Mona, only to realize too late that she had killed Colette instead. Meanwhile, detectives reviewing evidence come across details of the crime scene that were never made public. When they find LB's phone and watch the recovered video clips, Russell recognizes a distinct tattoo on the killer's arm. Without hesitation, he rushes to make an arrest. Sarah, knowing Lois' ink was captured on camera, realizes it's time to tie up loose ends. In one final calculated move, she lifts Lois' gun from its holster and discreetly places it back in her hand, just as Detective Daniels walks in. With a blood-curdling scream, Sarah feigns terror, crying out that Shaw is trying to shoot her. Caught off guard, Lois quickly realizes she has been set up. But before she can defend herself, she is surrounded by officers. Out of options, she aims her weapon at Sarah, but the cops don't hesitate. They open fire. As the dust settles, Sarah approaches Lois' lifeless body, leaning down to whisper an apology. After all, they were just friends. And now, all her friends are dead.